Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Wheel of Time, Season 2, Episode 5. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's pick up where we left off with Moiraine and Rand. Obviously, Rand's still in a state of confusion because it's like, cool, this woman I gotten close to over the past couple months, turns out she's not who I thought she was. In fact, she's worse. She's one of the Forsaken. She's part of the Dark One's army. It's not even just a dark friend, which once again, if I remember season 1 correctly, didn't he kind of almost hook up with a dark friend? Or at least she got close to him. I think that was her. Maybe I'm misremembering. So like, you know, it wouldn't be the first time this has happened, but I mean, this goes even further because the Forsaken are the Dark One's chosen one, so it makes it cut even deeper, especially because he was legitimately falling for her, which we'll get to that all in a second, about kind of like that relationship and what that means. But I thought it was so interesting when they ended up bringing that stable hand with them. I guess it makes sense why Moiraine did that, because Moraine's thinking in the long game. It's like, she was thinking like, cool, I'm going to bring you, and you're going to bring those horses, and you're going to like run and get as far away from us as possible. That way, Lanfear is following your trail and not ours. Cause I was like, cause you notice the character does not have a name. I was like, oh, so you're expendable. Her actually living was actually quite a surprise. Home dude with the horse that she first got, man, she went full like head popper, if you've seen The Boys, to some extent. I was just like, I mean, if anything, she went more Cindy than head popper, but whatever the case may be. The fact is that she just like blew up the dude's head, and it's just like, oh, I gotta ride this horse. Horses are just so freaking slow. It's like, how did you normally get around if you're thinking there's so... I guess maybe like the Dark One would kind of help teleport you around, but it's like, well, I don't have access to that right now. Because I guess almost in my head, I'm thinking like, are you Kingdom Heartsing this, where you're like opening portals through the dark world and just kind of using that to kind of teleport around? Like, how else would you get around then? But either way, because she was just, maybe at some point she could have fly, or maybe someone else amongst the Dark Ones, like Forsaken, can fly. I have no idea what that was in reference to, but it just seemed like she just hates riding on horses, so... But she caught up the stable master, and they ended up just sewing her mouth shut. It's like, oh, you're still alive at least. I wasn't expecting it. I was like, that. I feel bad because I mean, that still sucks, but it's better than the other alternative. But I'm like, man, that guy got it rough. It's just, I guess he annoyed you that you just like, okay, I'm gonna blow up your head. You gave me enough information. I'm like, all right, cool. I won't kill you. It's like, that just seemed. But part of me wonders. I mean. Not even trying to, like, I'm curious, does it run a little deeper where it's like, well, you know, it was a man versus a woman, so I'm, like, wondering if that played a role in it, like, not trying to make, like, but it feels like maybe there could have been a deeper meaning behind, like, why she killed him and didn't kill her, like, maybe, or, like I said, maybe it could just be like, she actually gave you useful information and didn't irritate you, so, you know, maybe that's all that was. I don't know, either way. Rand kind of finally learns the truth from Moiraine about like, yeah, so we didn't actually defeat the Dark One. That wasn't even like us fighting the last battle, because the last battle was actually still a ways away. We actually you ended up actually releasing one of his lieutenants. It's like, cool. I even love the way that Ishmael was talking about why he was the one released. He's like, do you know why I was the one released amongst all of us? So at the very least, it seemed like there was like, what, 6 of them at least? Because she refers to the boys. So I'm assuming, I don't know if those are supposed to be twins, or who knows how many. You know, there's multiple at least. So at bare minimum, there's at least 6 of them, I think, in total. And so, because Lanfear was like, oh, this one, no, the boys are idiots, so couldn't release them. But it's Ishmael's like, because I'm the only one who fully believes in the dark. I guess like everyone else who's partnered with the Dark One is, I mean, and I think that's going to be an interesting thing. And it all kind of goes back to that line Ingtar had brought up to Perrin, where he was like, at the end of the day, you know, you might want to ask Pat and Fane why he did what he did, maybe you'll be kind of surprised, because everyone has their motivations on why they're doing what they're doing. And we'll get into Landfair soon enough, but talking even just about Ishmael's really quickly, he's like, because I truly believe in the dark. Everyone else kind of went, not reluctantly, but it's like they kind of had no other recourse. Ishmael is like, for him, it's like, no, I'm a true believer in this, because he believes that the only way to really save this world is stopping the will itself. Like, he truly believes this world is better off, because like this will be this will be a better life for everyone once the Dark One has won. The moment we've stopped the will, because things continuing the way they've continued for so long, it's why the world is broken. He even said, like, when the world was broken, no one bothered picking up the pieces, so that's why it's like the Dark One here is to do that and kind of dismantle this whole system, because it's broken, and it has been broken, and there's no point in trying to piecing it back together, because no one wanted to piece it back together, because no one bothered picking up said pieces. So I thought that was just interesting insight into him, and just kind of the other lieutenants, in fact, So I just thought that was such an interesting thing. But like I said, it did, and this episode in particular really leans into what Ingtar had said to Perrin, like, right, understanding why everyone's done what they've done. And we'll talk about it later on about Leandrin and how her motivations, and like I said, how that all ties in. But Moraine ends up taking Rand to her sisters to get like horses and obviously new clothes. And it's like, interesting for Rand. It's like, obviously him and Rand Rand has run into Avery before, obviously like 2 episodes ago. And so it's like interesting to be like, oh, this is Moraine. And it's like, oh, like I'm the one that's gotten to see your family, which once again, we don't even know if Lan has seen her family or not. I mean, there's still so much about their dynamic we're not really sure. Because even her nephew was like, oh, like you must be her warder. He's like, no, I'm not a warder. And Moraine's like, this is Rand. I can't really go too much into that, because once again, she can't lie, but she also has to, like, there's loopholes for the Aes Sedai, so she can dance around it without giving away too much. But so she hasn't really seen her sister in I guess she's been around, because it's like she hasn't seen her nephew in like 20 years. So I guess maybe that was the last time she was around her sister, because her sister gave her advice. Because Avery gave her advice that Moraine had given her 40 years ago. So I was like, is that the last time you saw each other? Did you not really see each other the last time she was around? But it's like, no, they did. But that was just that advice was given all those years ago. So, but I thought that was so interesting that Avery has such interesting insight to her sister, where it's like, at the end of the day, you've always been someone that I've always seen in that look in your eyes, that you've always known what to do next. This is the first time I've ever really seen you not knowing what to do. Because she doesn't know what to do. She doesn't even know if the thing she's doing now is the right thing to do, because it's like, right, she led Rand there last season, and what ended up happening? You didn't fight and beat the Dark One as you thought. It was, in fact, you released his top lieutenant. So it's like, and now you're without your connection to the power, like the source. So it's like, she's kind of spinning her wheels, like she's going flying by the seat of her pants. Like, there's so much influx right now because everything is on the line, and she's just not quite sure what to do. I mean, she's kind of handling a lot of this on her own. To be fair, this was her mission, so that's why she's taking it on even more herself, because it's like, this is what I'm meant to do. This is my role, in all of this. This is my fate. This is my destiny. And I have to kind of see it through and just going at it the way I can. But Avery had given her advice that it's like, at the end of the day, because she's like, right, Rand is in trouble and he needs my protection. She's like, all right, so whatever it is you're dealing with, is it the truth? Is it really the truth? Does Rand need your protection? And I think maybe in her mind is like, no, he doesn't, which gives her the idea for her plan. But I think it's also because, well, what protecting can I really give him right now? I guess maybe in her mind, because I don't have my powers. But I think it's also because we found out this episode about Lanfear is that because the person I thought she kept referring to, I was like, I don't think it's Ishmael. I think it's probably going to be like the Dark One. Funny enough, it was the previous dragon. She was in love with the previous dragon and he broke her heart. he ended up breaking her heart and being with, because she wasn't always a dark friend. She became a dark friend after the dragon broke her heart. In fact, she went to the Dark One to get him back. So I don't know if that's a situation of he had died and she wanted to be with the dragon reborn again. And so it's like, right, our destiny will always put us on opposite ends. So make us, I mean, because Ishmael's plan is to get Rand on their side regardless. It's like you need the dragon reborn on your side. But I'm curious, is that how Lanfear is going to get her side of things of like, oh, you'll get the dragon on your side, and that way Lanfear will also have him at the same time. I mean, but even Ishmael and her had that whole conversation about, he's like, will you betray me? And she's like, obviously, because he even said like, oh, I know why you're doing this. And she's kind of like, yeah, you do. So my allegiances are only to me. I'm in this for the long run. But I think for Ishmael, it's kind of like, I know that I'm the only one of us that's a full devout believer in all of this, who fully like embraced the darkness. Like, I'm all about this. So I know like each one of you probably, the moment you get what you want, you're probably going to bail. But especially considering Ishmael wants Rand and Lanfear wants Rand, but obviously for different reasons. So. But even Rand kind of admits that he doesn't believe everything between him and Lanfear was, fake. Because it is that complicated thing of like, all right. It kind of reminds me of another story, it's specifically a video game. I won't go into detail about it because it's a pretty major spoiler. But it's like, it is that thing of like, right, you're kind of her love reincarnated. Regardless of you being your own individual, still you have the soul of the previous dragon. And so it is like her love is still there. And even Ishmael was like, right, what is he like in comparison to the previous dragon? And she's like, kind of afraid of his power, softer than the previous one. But it's still like, yeah, there's a piece of her love still there. As in, like, the dragon that she loved previously is still there, so, inside of Rand. So, loving Rand is like loving, I mean, that makes those lines cut even deeper when you think about her being like, oh, like, you help me forget. It's like, which, I mean, that's the complicated thing of the person you're with who's you're trying to use to make you forget about your previous love. It's like, well, you're a constant, like, deterrent. You're able to keep my mind off of them, but you're also a constant reminder. Even more so in Rand's case, considering that what those circumstances are for Lanfear. So I just thought that was such an interesting reveal. And Moiraine, at the end of it all, actually wants Rand to basically give himself over to Lanfear, at least kind of lead her on, because it's like that way we get to find out what Ishmael, because we're on our back foot right now. We need to kind of like start taking steps forward instead of being pushed back. So we need to find out what Ishmael has planned, which we'll get to. And well, I'll go into that next. But so Rand goes into his dream where Lanfear approaches him and ends up. He's kind of shackled to a thing, and she's like, oh, we're kind of in a large empty space, and she's like, finally. So how that's all going to play out is going to be interesting, because it's not like Rand has to completely lie. He has to make sure she believes it, but it's also not all of it's a lie. All he has to do is lean into the fact is he has feelings for her. Now, whether that's 100%, it's not all 100% Rand, but it's not all 100% the previous dragon who was in love with Lanfear. Once again, we don't know how and why the relationship broke apart, why he ended up leaving her to be with whoever the previous dragon's wife was. So I'm curious, was that a thing of this was never meant to be, my destiny was with this person? Was that what was supposed to happen? Or we don't have enough insight to that, because there's not a lot of records back then. Even Moiraine says, like, we're just basing this on the few records we do have of what happened. So maybe Lanfear next episode can give us a lot more insight to what happened between her and the previous dragon. But going back, circling over to Ishmael, we found out, because I was curious, like, okay, does Lady Serath, does she know who he is? It's like, oh no, she knows exactly what she's doing. She knows he is who he is. But the thing is, the lord that she served, Turok, has no idea who he is. Apparently, he's just made a point to, like, rise up in the ranks of Lady Seraph's council and her group, but no one else in that kingdom of the Shan-Chan, like, none of them know him, because later, even at the end of the episode, it's like, wait, who are you? How'd you manage to rise to the rank? Like, I don't know who you are. Because I thought it was interesting because Lady Soraf had said, like, oh, you might be one of the chosen, but you're not of the blood. So it's like, right, you're here as an invited guest. You actually have no place in all of this because it's about, I mean, like a lot of stuff in this world is about power and lineage and blood. But it's like, yeah, you might be one of the chosen as one of, the dark ones, but like, yeah, that doesn't really give you enough say here because you're not of the blood. So, because he's the one that convinced her to go attack that village. I don't know if it's specifically because he knew Perrin was there and that was the main motivation for that, or what. But because Lady Sorath is kind of like on her, I don't know if she's planning on replacing Turok, because she is like, oh, we might as well kill him, but I don't know if she plans on replacing him. Probably. Because we don't know what her motivation is. I think the person I thought, like I was saying, he was like, oh, Lanfear, I know what you want, which obviously he does. The person I'm thinking of is Lady Sorath. He knows what she wants. And because she is the one who made a deal with the Dark Ones. So I think I'm wondering, is it just about power or not? Also, having like those fingernails cut was interesting. Because it seems like, I guess, like all the lords in that all the ladies and lords have those. It's kind of, I guess, like a symbol of status, and having them cut means that she has to basically repent and make up for the fact of what she did before she can get her be back in good standing with the High Lord Turak. But obviously, it's all a manipulation. It's all part of like the Dark One's plan, but especially Ishmael, he being the puppet master. Man, that man plays that role so well because everything is a piece, like every storyline. I mean, everything is obviously connected, but it's all meant for one purpose. Because every situation is meant to put Rand in a situation so that you break him. Because the fact is that you need the dragon on your side, and the way to do that is to break him. And maybe just like everyone who's worked with the Dark One, who isn't like fully committed, who doesn't fully believe in all of this, is only there for their own respective reasons, or the Dark One can make something happen for them. And so maybe Rand will have to be broken so that he'll have no choice, because everyone, Egwene, Nynaeve, Perrin, and Mat, all those stories are going down the direction they're going, because for Ishmael, he needs all those pieces to this puzzle to like break Rand so that Rand has no choice, but it'll make it like he needs to be broken so it's easier to get the dragon on their side. Because he said, basically with Egwene and Nynaeve, it's like one who wants power, I can only assume Egwene, the one who is fearful of it, Nynaeve, Perrin is becoming more wolf than man, and Mat has been ours since birth. So, but Thane ended up showing up, and he ended up giving Turak the horn. What purposes you be like, because even he's like, right, this way because it seems like it's all about getting like the world under their banner of the Shanchen banner, and it's like with this the whole world will basically be ours. So I guess it's to start a war that Ishmael knows that they'll lose, or maybe he needs them to win it to kind of sway things on the path that they're kind of moving the world on. Who fully knows like how the horn will benefit them and in what way they'll end up using it. Because I'm honestly not quite even sure. Because isn't the horn like supposed to be like a battle cry for the last battle or something like that? But maybe I don't remember like the significance of like what the horn actually does. But you can tie the Lady Suraf stuff and Ishmael obviously circling to the whole Egwene and Nynaeve situation, because Nynaeve ends up having a talk with Leandra, and her motivations are exactly what we thought. It's her son. You know, she broke all 3 oaths, as she says, like, oh, I've broken many, many more, but it's for the sake of her son. Like, everyone's got their motivations on why they're doing what they're doing. And so for Nynaeve, it's like, then what was, like, why am I here? And it's because she is in link with the Dark One, and she needed Nynaeve on their side, like, because Nynaeve being the most powerful channeler out there means like she was never meant to be a red Aja. She was meant to be a dark Aja, as we kind of heard. I don't know. I don't think that term ever came up in season 1, but maybe it did. But the dark Aja, it's like you're going to be not only will you help break Rand, but you're also one of the most powerful channelers, so we can get you on the Dark One side. It's meant to be a thing of, yeah, I was kind of hoping to make it a little easier, but, you know, I kind of had to rip the Band-Aid off considering the circumstances. Egwene also makes sense because she wasn't surprised to see Egwene there. That was kind of already fine, but the problem is Elaine being there. It's like, well, I have no choice. I can't just knock out these two and take them and send you on your merry way. It's like, no, you got to come along too. I have to sell you, give you over to the Dark One as well. Because Elaine's in this interesting position because she is she's the I was about to say dragon heir, the daughter heir. So I'm sure the Dark One won't shy away from having like someone of her position under your control, because it means you've got another kingdom secretly under your control. Moment, you know, you can manipulate that kingdom to get her up to, like, you know, taking over the throne a lot sooner. Like, there's a lot of machinations that could be involved in that. But it's like, yeah, having someone upon in such a powerful position is, you know, never a bad thing. So that can be worked and used to their advantage. Once again, Nynaeve being the most powerful, even Gwen being as powerful as she is, because she's stronger than most Aes Sedai, and then you have Nynaeve being even stronger than that. So they both could be a force necessary for this fight, at least on the Dark One's side. So, but Liandrin, it is like cutting to her core. Like, she does feel bad because she does like Nynaeve, and for her it's like, I've done and sacrificed a lot, but I think what Nynaeve said, it struck a chord with her. Like, was it all worth it? All the betrayals that I've caused, you know, it's for my son, but like, was it all worth it in the end? Kind of has to be at this point, considering all that she's done. But she had cut Nynaeve and the others free, trying to give them a shot, because she doesn't agree with the way the Shan like handles women that can channel. It's basically, you have to shackle them, and they basically have to, because it's like, because it has to be controlled. You have to prove that you're worthy of it, because it's like, oh, for Suraf, and I think it's just the Shan Chan's belief in general, where it's like, women who are just lucky enough to be born with the power just automatically become Aes. It's like, no, that shouldn't be how it works. You should show that you are worthy of that power before you really gain your position and your freedom. Like, having your freedom is a right, because you're kind of a loose cannon until we mold you into the perfect weapon type of thing. And so that's what, like, the thing over their mouths are meant to be. Like, it's meant to be like, they are treated like animals. They are put on leashes, and I mean, I'd say even treated, I wouldn't even compare them to animals. I'd say they're even less, because even animals have their freedoms that, like, they have to, these people have to work their way up to their freedom. It's like, right, it's a right to be earned. And obviously that doesn't sit well with Liandrin, because it's like, these are fellow channelers that under different circumstances would be also Aes Sedai as well. I mean, it's kind of like the equivalency of the Shan Chan's Aes Sedai is their equivalency. But Seraph was kind of like running her mouth, and Liandrin's like, you will kneel before me if you last long enough. And I guess, like, she's kind of hoping that Nynaeve is giving them at least a shot, giving you a chance. You know, it's like, right, if you can find your way out of this, then I held up my end of the bargain, but that doesn't mean I got to make it easy for him. So it's Liandrin. It is a complicated thing for Liandrin. Sadly, Egwene ended up getting captured, and we see her getting collared at the end of the episode. It's like, Jesus, dude. I mean, if one of them ends up killing Tarak, like, it's not going to be a big deal. In fact, it's going to help Lady Surat, but I think she's going to get it too. I hope she does. But, you know, Nynaeve and Elaine have escaped, but they ended up getting grabbed up by a yellow Aes Sedai, a yellow Aja. So it's like, obviously they're wanted, so what that next move is going to be. I mean, it's about getting Egwene back. I think it is such an interesting pairing, like, having Nynaeve, because they don't know each other. Like, they're bound together. Like, Nynaeve and Elaine are only bound together because of their connection to Egwene. They both care about her, but, like, Nynaeve, it's like, I don't really know, because Nynaeve is like that about everyone. The only people she cared about was her core group from the Two Rivers. Outside of that, it's like, I could care less. I mean, everything and everyone else is kind of a means to an end. And now it's like, I'm stuck with this person I don't really know. You kind of, I mean, maybe on some level she feels like, right, you're kind of pulling, maybe she sees her as part of the reason why Egwene is like drifting so far from her. But I'm also sure for Elaine, it's like, right, my friend is so caught up in so much turmoil over you. You've brought about some complicated feelings in her, which I mean, I recognize like the jealousy and stuff like that. You know, that got covered in a previous episode, but I wonder, do they kind of have issue and beef with each other because of Egwene? They both view the other as kind of an issue that's kind of contorting Egwene in some shape or form. It's an interesting dynamic that I hope we get to spend a little more time with going forward. Tied to all that, we do have Varen showing up at the tower. She hasn't been there in so long, and so she kind of goes to the library because she's trying to, I guess, I wonder, why did she pick, well, I guess she always had interest in Nynaeve and Egwene, but I guess maybe she was specifically checking in on them because of Moiraine, maybe? But either way, she goes there and wants to see them, but it's like, they're not here. Neither is the dragon, God, I keep saying dragon, the daughter heir, Elaine, and she goes to see, God, I always butcher the character's name, it's like, Sharam, I think is her name, and she's like, that's weird. And she looks through the books. I was like, we know where they are. And she's like, oh yeah, they went to like see her like family member or something like that. They'll be back in a couple of days. I was like, well, we know that's bull. I'm like, there's no way you signed off on that. Like, but even she's like, why would I forget something like that? And so Jessica, which that actress, I was like, is it Katie Leung? I could be mistaken. From the Harry Potter movies. More recently, I'd seen, streaming service that this is on right now. More recently, I'd seen her in Perception. Not Perception. God. Peripheral. I don't know. There is a show called Perception, but I screwed that up. Either way, that's something I've seen in her recently. So she's this character, Jessica. She's her and the other brown Aja are helping Varen try and find out like what's really going on. So it turns out that it wasn't even like, Shirem, like someone forced her signature to do all this. And it's like, no, she remembers doing it, but she had just forgotten about it. It's because she was compelled to do it. And I thought it was so interesting that just the slightest difference in her penmanship is what kind of led them. I even looked because Jessica was like, my eidetic memory is helpful in this regard of like, she's able to like, immediately, eidetic memory is kind of like the same thing as photographic memory to some extent. I think those are equatable. I think I don't know if they might not be 100% the same thing, but it's kind of equatable. Either way, now it's like, so now they know there's a dark Aja amongst them. It's like, okay, so there's an Aja here. There's an Aes Sedai who's working for the Dark One, which we know is Liandrin. And Varen is like, she could tell, like, she's just like, because Liandrin showed up with like, I've got these things. And Varen's like, yeah, these things that can only be gotten at this very, very specific point in time. It's like, that's so interesting and convenient. It's like, but then like, Leandrin's like, I heard there was an attack and yada, yada, yada. They could be in danger. Sure. Come on. We should let the keeper know. And Varen's got that look on her face like, you're good. Oh, you're good. You're good. It's like, I smell the BS, but I'm going to go along with it, So that's definitely going to be interesting to see how things play out in the tower. I mean, to be fair, Liandrin tried to give our trio a fighting chance, so it doesn't completely annul her of everything, but she's playing the role the best she can. If like, once again, if they get, kind of wouldn't work in your advantage because it would kind of screw you over if they do get found. But maybe she wanted to give them a fighting chance, but figured they wouldn't. Maybe it's like, you take out a few of them, maybe even Lady Seraph when it's all said and done. Maybe it's not even you have to take down Lady Seraph. All you have to do is make her look so bad that Turok will have no choice but to put her down. Maybe that's I don't know. It's just hard to fully, like I said, Liandrin saw what the Shen Shen do to their channelers, so it's like, regardless of what I'm trying to get out of this, she does feel bad, like, because they are, regardless of it all, Nynaeve, Egwene, and Elaine are all sisters, and no one deserves that type of treatment, so that's why she wants to give them. Once again, I held up my end of the bargain. You can't get a hold of them. That's your failure, not mine. So, like I said, we'll see how that all plays out. And then finally, we catch up with Perrin's situation. Obviously, learning more about being a wolf brother from Elias, that eventually his eyes will permanently stay yellow like that. Because he hasn't, for one, he also hasn't fully embraced it, but it might not even be a thing about having fully embraced it. It might just be, whether you embrace it or not, this is what you are, and there's no escaping it. Even though Perrin kind of is, but kind of isn't. Because it turns out Elias was trying, because Perrin wants to go save his friends, but the problem is that Elias is like, no, they're not your pack. They're not your pack. Your friends from the Two Rivers aren't your pack. Neither was your wife. But for Perrin, it's like, you don't know anything about my pack. And all the other wolves gathered up, almost like, yo, what you doing, homie? Nah. Fall in line, homie. Fall in line. Except for Hopper. Hopper's just kind of like, oh, like, you know. But for Perrin, it's like, regardless of it, I have to go help them. So he ended up finding about Uno didn't get a proper burial. He went back to try and help him. Sadly, ended up walking. I mean, didn't have time to like drag around. Had to escape before. Didn't have the opportunity to go grab the dead body to kind of give him a proper burial. But there he ends up finding a Aiel named Avienda. Sorry, I butchered that. But Avienda, which I was like, they don't know that Rand's an Aiel, do they? I don't remember if they know that. I mean, we as the audience know. We learned that about, I mean, they brought it, they referenced it this season, but I don't remember if that's something the entire group learned about him, or was that just something Rand learned about himself. Either way, that situation also has Perrin mixed up with the White Cloaks, because they showed up, because they saved that village, because that's the same village where everything went down. Because he was even like, oh yeah, like who's the innkeeper? Like, where is she? It's like, well, she followed that caravan trying to get her granddaughter back. Because it's been a couple days. So like the White Cloaks came in and they pushed the Shan Chan back. But even he was like, yeah, but things were kind of better before, because as long as you showed your allegiances to the Shan Chan, they left us alone. But like the White Cloaks, it's the interrogations and all that. Doesn't help that Perrin and Egwene's old buddy, is it Vilda or Valda, ends up showing up the White Cloak they dealt with last season. But even the White Cloak that they ran into this episode, that Perrin ran into this episode, he's not fully like the others, because their old pal kind of referenced like, oh, your father's name will only get you so far. So he's in this, but he seems like they look like they might be setting him up to be a dissenter. At least he's in a position where he probably has to decide like what he's going to be all about. Because he gave Avienda like water. And that's ultimately why, like, when Perrin releases her and works with her to like take down all those White Cloaks, it's like, well, you have to spare him because he gave you water. Like, he's not all bad. He's not especially considering like, well, the other dude literally tortured Perrin, so it's like, I know kind of the evil that's there, but that guy's not as bad. Maybe he's someone that's kind of lost because he overheard some of that conversation. So I guess maybe that kind of smoothed it over a little, where in Perrin's mind it's like, you're not that bad. He's shown to have some decency. He's tied to his loyalty to the White Cloaks, but even that's not fully tangible. We'll see. Maybe at the end of the day he'll be like, nah, I'm all about this, and he's going to have to be taken down. But it's like, right, for now we spare your life. Next time you won't be so lucky. We'll see. But Avienda is going to be sticking it out with Perrin, because it's a thing amongst the Aiel of, you spared my life, so my life is kind of yours now. You gave me water, so essentially kind of using that metaphor, not metaphor, but using that circumstance with that White Cloak to kind of apply to theirs. So it's like, yeah, you helped save my life. Because she was like, right, what was it, a wetlander put me in this cage, and now you're letting me, a wetlander's releasing me. Like, why are you doing that? And for him, it's because no one deserves to be in a cage. I mean, he was just locked up himself, but there's also the fear of, well, his run-in with the White Cloaks from last season, but also that he is someone that would most likely get put in a cage because of being different. So he found that commonality. And I even love that situation of, she's like, I'm not going to take you as like as a lover. She's like, I mean, not like it would be that bad of a thing. And he's like, she's like, it starts laughing because she's like messing with him. She's like, don't worry, I'll be able to control my lust around you, Perrin. And I was like, I like that. So I'm curious to see how that dynamic. I do like that we are expanding these circles for a lot of people. Obviously, like Nynaeve and Leandrin kind of grew a little closer this season. Egwene and Elaine and Perrin has men now, and Matt is with men. Perrin has Avinda. Even Moraine's, got her family, and Rand's got Lanfear, interestingly enough. So a lot of interesting developments. I'm really curious to ultimately see where all this ends up taking us, because there is a collision course in so many capacities. Because obviously Nynaeve and Egwene wanted to go save Perrin and Loial, but that's all, which is still applicable because Perrin wants to go back to save Loial and Ingtar and the others. And so that those Perrin and Nynaeve and Egwene are like those, and Elaine, those storylines are going to converge there, which I'm sure is going to benefit, because we know that Matt is being sent to where Rand is. So there is like a lot of collision course amongst that group. So it's definitely going to be interesting to ultimately see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.